Hi everyone, Cecile Aarons here with Get Mental Podcast. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you guys are, as always, having a great Tuesday. This is Transformation Tuesday, and today I wanted to talk about sex. So this is a big, juicy, often very charged and complicated subject. Yet it is one of the most powerful and normal desires that we have as adults. So I want to focus on not just sex in general, but specifically sexual trauma and how it can impact our sexual lives and our sexual development. Thank you, Crystal, for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. So first of all, I'm not going to be able to cover as much as I would like because it's not realistic. This is a Facebook Live, and this is a big topic, like I said. But I'm just going to talk about the key points, okay? Hi, Melissa. So, sex, right? If you've never been sexually abused, assaulted, or had any kind of sexual violation, sex, for the most part, might be fun and desirable for you. But for a lot of people, and I think last time I checked, 1 in 5 women get sexually assaulted. That's a lot. Sex is very stressful, not always fun, and can be filled with all sorts of conflicting emotions. Why is that? Well, the obvious answer is sex changes us. Sexual trauma changes us, especially if it happened when we were younger, okay? I'm a sexual abuse survivor, just want to disclose that. And, I've had to do my own work and healing around this, and you're never really like fully like, oh, I'm completely on the other side. For the most part, you can hope that, but there might still be some triggers that you may not be aware of. So it's not about perfection. It's about having an awareness of what's happening to you in your body, okay? But when you have been sexually abused at any point in your life, especially when you're a child, it really interrupts your healthy sexual development. So you're basically being asked to participate or perform, or things are happening to your body that really your maturity and your consciousness cannot really fully process or understand, okay? So that is a major kind of mind F to your system. And it changes the way you see sex, it changes the way you view sex, it changes the way you perform, it changes you, in a fundamental way when you've had these kinds of traumas. That's why I want to talk about it, okay? Let's get real at Get Mental. So it changes the way your sexual functioning, basically, and not for the better, okay? Usually in dysfunctional ways, and it's not your fault. You're just trying to survive something really horrific. But the good news is, if you guys have been listening to me long enough, I'm always about delivering the good news and the possibilities, okay? So sex can be very triggering. That's normal. Sex can be incredibly uncomfortable when you've had sexual trauma. That's normal. Sex can be painful sometimes. Sometimes it'll manifest as low libido, okay? Or sometimes it'll manifest as sex is painful. So if medical reasons have been ruled out and doctors are saying there is no medical explanation for your symptoms, it's usually more often than not psychological. And that's where someone like me, a trauma therapist, comes in, and we start really unpacking and, digging and trying to make sense of why the sexual dysfunction, so to speak, is present. And a lot of times these memories are repressed to the point where you've tricked your brain as if it never happened before, okay? For example, I was working with this gentleman, 2-3 sessions into it, I'm like, something is going on. And I asked him, have you been sexually abused? Like, that's part of the intake process. He said, nope. He was really clear about it. And then second session, I was kind of picking up on some stuff again. And he's like, nope. And then eventually, like we did some kind of, it's called EMDR. It's one of the trauma treatment interventions I specialize in. We started doing some of that, and this like remote memory came to the forefront, and he's like, oh my God, I was. And he had absolutely forgotten about it. And unfortunately, that's really common. Okay, so if you're in doubt, if you have any inclination that maybe something like that happened to you, talk to a professional, okay? Because sometimes these things happen when you're pre-verbal, meaning you don't even have the words for it, especially if it happened when you were a baby, or when you were really young and you don't have kind of a fully formed memory of it. Your body remembers. Okay, that's the beauty of our body, is we may not, memory is a funky thing. You're not going to remember everything, especially traumatic memories. Our body has an intelligence built in where it shuts everything down that maybe you're not ready to feel or deal with, or that your body thinks you can't handle yet, right? So eventually, given the right environments and the right professional, some of these things can start to come up to the surface, and then you can start to really work on it. But I just kind of wanted to kind of side note there that if you are in doubt and you're not sure, but you kind of are having some sexual dysfunction, sexual difficulties, it's uncomfortable, triggering for you, talk to someone like me, okay? Talk to someone like us, a therapist. So, instead of sex, a healthy sexual development is, like I said, it's fun, it's pleasurable, you feel good before, during, after. A lot of times with sexual trauma victims, the whole process is very triggering, and uncomfortable. And instead of it being like a choice, right? Sometimes if you've been traumatized, you start to believe or feel as if the abuse is happening all over again. And you start to kind of forget that you're actually there making a choice to be there, right? Like if, for example, if you're, 4 or 5 years later and it really is a truly consensual relationship, you are making a choice to be there. So we need to help you reframe what's a healthy sexual mindset and what's a sexual abuse mindset. So a sexual abuse mindset is when you think sex is abusive, unsafe, powerless, that you're powerless over this, that you're being exploited somehow or taken advantage of, that your partner's just kind of like inconveniencing you, that you're having to do this thing out of obligation, okay? Of course, I'm speaking broadly here because I don't have a client in front of me. But I'm just trying to kind of give you guys general information. That's what a sexual abuse mindset is. And a lot of times when you've been sexually abused, you go into this room with this person or wherever you're going to have sex, and it may be consensual, but that old, wounded, traumatized part takes over, and you forget that you're there by choice, A, and B, that maybe this partner isn't a perpetrator, right? And that you have power over what's happening, and that it can be fun and pleasurable and satisfying, right? That might seem really kind of far-fetched if your wounded part is the one having sex with that person in the room, okay? So is this making sense, guys? Give me a thumbs up, or if this is, kind of making sense, because like I said, this is a complex subject. So we want to reframe sex as something that is healthy, where you have power and choice. Thanks, Melissa. Where it's fun and pleasurable. But that's not just going to happen, okay? It's going to take a professional to help you get to that level, okay? I hate to say this. It's not just going to be from a book or from this Facebook talk, You're going to have to go in there, put in the time and the energy to really kind of get these parts out of the place where they still believe they're being abused and exploited, and they still believe that they're powerless, okay? Where sex is seen as unsafe and unpleasurable, okay? Remember, if you didn't have that experience, more often than not, you're not even going to that's not even going to be kind of in your psyche, right? You're going to have a healthier expectation. Okay, sorry guys, that was a phone call. So it's really important that you see a trauma-informed therapist, because this is a specialty area. Okay, this is a highly specialized type of therapy, and you want to see somebody who's trauma-informed and who has had experience treating these things, because once we start going in there and digging some of this stuff up, it can be very distressing and destabilizing. So you really need somebody who's skilled enough to make sure, you know, you're not feeling worse as you're doing the work. Okay, there is a time and place though for treatment where, you know, you might decide like, this is too much, I don't want to have sex at all. And so, you know, temporary abstinence is totally fine and sometimes necessary as part of your self-healing. Okay, so when I work with couples and one of them has had sexual trauma, or both of them sometimes, you know, we just kind of give each other, I help them give each other permission to like, let's just take sex off the table. Okay, let's do some healing first, and then maybe we can slowly reintroduce it to each other, and let's learn about other ways of connecting. Because connection and intimacy isn't just sexual, right? There's many, many ways to connect and show love and be close to someone. The other flip side of having been sexually traumatized is hypersexuality, okay? It brings me to talk about that, because sometimes, right, remember when I said in the beginning, when you've been sexually abused, especially as a young child, your sexual development gets interrupted and all these wires get crossed, and you get really a pretty distorted view of sex. And, you know, like this gentleman I was working with who didn't realize he was sexually abused until 3 sessions in, like he repressed it for that long, right? And his brain did a really good job tricking him into forgetting it. He was, and continues to be, but he's working on it, hypersexual, meaning having sex all the time, needs to have it all the time, one partner, multiple times a day, you know, if he's single, different women, right? And so it's not because he's a bad guy, okay? It's because he's trying to work out all these, you know, sexual trauma that was unbeknownst to him, okay? And so if you're with somebody who might have a sexual addiction or struggling with this, I'm not saying condone it. I'm not saying don't have boundaries, okay? I'm just saying that those types of issues are usually rooted in traumatic experiences, and hopefully that person gets help, okay? I'm not saying stay with them. I'm just saying have another way of viewing what's happening. Have your boundaries, especially if you've been sexually traumatized, and I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. But, you know that this person acting that way most likely needs some major intervention, some major treatment, and whether they do that or not it's not on you, it's on them, okay? But it's not you. It's not because there's something wrong with you. You know, I help a lot of women whose partners have cheated on them recover from this, especially from sexual addiction. That, you know, it's not you. It's their trauma. It's their distorted, dysfunctional sexual functioning based on what happened to them. And now they're acting it out, unfortunately, in their relationship with you and many others before you, most likely. So I just wanted to kind of give you that reassurance, okay? So trauma-informed therapist, this is a specialist area, like I said, and sometimes, you know, it's healthy to take a break from sex, even if you're in a healthy, safe relationship, because sometimes there's a time and place for putting the brakes on that so you can do the healing that you need to do and connect with your partner in other ways. The other thing to remember is that if you are with somebody who's safe, a safe partner, how do I do that? Sorry, somebody wants to be on the video. I'm sorry. I'm not very high tech here. Do I click you? Okay, approve. I think I did. All right. Are you there, Bendini? Facebook says that you're being added. Connecting. Thank you guys for your patience. Let's see what Bendini wants to say. Okay, we'll wait. Oh, I think you're curious. Hi, Bendini. How are you?
Hello.
Hi. Did you want to share your thoughts about what I'm talking about? Can you hear me? I'm sorry about that. Disconnected. So anyway, what I was saying is, if you happen to be in a relationship where, um, the sexual traumas in the past, and you are with someone safe enough, someone, healthy enough, where they're not forcing you and making you feel guilty to have sex. Because, by the way, if that's happening, absolute no, no. That's like huge violations and red flags all over the place, and that's another conversation. But if that's happening, and if you've been sexually traumatized, trust your gut, trust your instinct. Um, you know, that's not healthy for you to continue to be in that environment. But if you are with somebody who's safe enough, and where you feel open enough to talk to about these things without necessarily divulging the details, you can start to share with them what's comfortable, what's uncomfortable, you know um and I'm gonna look on my screen here because I'm drawing from one of my favorite therapists. Her name is Robin Shapiro. She's a trauma expert, and she's done this work for about 30 or so years. And basically she's recommending, and I recommend this too as a trauma therapist, that you start experimenting with your safe partner by letting them know what you like, what you don't like, saying stop when you're not comfortable. And I don't care if it's in the middle of an orgasm, stop. Being able to say that is really key for sexual abuse victims and survivors. Um, Saying not now, not now, honey. I just don't feel good. And not like not now because you're trying to like make up excuses, like not now because I really do have a headache. I know that's a big one. Or not now because I'm still upset with you. Or not now because I'm just really tired from work. I had a really shitty day. Like, whatever it is, it's really important for us sexual abuse survivors to be able to verbalize these things and not have emotional punishment or consequences. These are healthy boundaries, okay? And if you want to recover from this is part of the work. And the other piece is to be able to have a good time, to be able to give yourself permission to feel pleasure from a safe partner, right? To be specific about some of your requests, to say this, that, kiss me this way, hug me this way. Like, all of that is healthy sexual functioning, okay? So, again, these are just broad, strokes on a very complicated subject, but I wanted to talk about it because oftentimes in mental health, we don't talk about it. And even in therapy, sometimes, nobody's talking about their sexual health. So to me, sexual trauma or not, it's something I am assessing because it's something that I believe is an integral part of a person. Of course, if they don't want to focus on it, we're not going to focus on it, but it is something that I make sure my clients know we can talk about this stuff, okay? Because this is part of who we are as human beings. Heck, we're on the planet because our parents had sex, right? And that's why we're here. So let's destigmatize the conversation, okay? So again, trauma changes our brain. Sexual trauma changes the way we view sex, the way we relate to people sexually, the way we function sexually. You can either be low libido, low desire, or really dysfunctional, right? Really passive, and then thinking your partner's abusing you, but maybe because you're not speaking up, right? And then you could also be on the other end of the spectrum, which is hypersexuality and being really promiscuous and not having any sexual boundaries and just having sex all the time without intimacy. Okay? So, those are some of the ways that it can affect us. It can also, the obvious ones, give you PTSD, okay, or complex trauma. That's often the case. That's often what I see in folks, especially if there's been other forms of trauma outside of sexual abuse, depression, addiction,
and other types of mental health issues. So this stuff really can be pervasive and have long lasting effects. And unfortunately, it's not just going to go away in time, right? With trauma, you know the saying, time heals all wounds, cannot be farther from the truth. That is not true when it comes to trauma. Time does not heal all wounds. Therapy is what can heal that wound, you know? And again, it's not about perfection. It's about just getting into a healthy sexual space and sexual functioning where you can start to view sex as fun again and pleasurable and not so scary. And you can start to give yourself permission to have power, to have choice, to have a say, to, you know, to say stop when you need it to stop for whatever reason. Okay? You don't have to justify it. Okay? So based on that, I want to talk a little bit about consent. Consent when you've been sexually traumatized is key. Okay? And consent can change at any time. You may be consenting in the beginning and then something happens in the middle stages. You might be triggered. Something that your partner's doing might be triggering old stuff. You can say, I don't want this anymore. Okay? And who's ever on the receiving end of that needs to honor and trust that. Okay? Consent isn't a one time thing, consent is happening throughout the whole sexual encounter. So I know it sucks if you're on the receiving end of it and you're really having a great time, but if you care about this person, stopping and respecting that is far more important than the sex you think you're about to not have. Okay? Because what you do to each other affects the sexual health of the relationship. Okay? How you treat each other affects the sexual health of the relationship. And what happens in the bedroom is largely determined by what happens outside of the bedroom. Okay? I'm going to repeat that. What happens in the bedroom, the intimacy between two people, is largely determined by what's happening outside of the bedroom and how people relate and treat partners, relate and treat each other on the day to day, the little things, you know, and the big things. So if you're wondering, well, why is my sex life not very, you know, awesome? Well, think about what's happening outside of that space, right? Sometimes people use sex too to kind of, you know, compensate for the things in their relationship that may not be there. Um, Again, that's another complicated subject. That could be because of sexual trauma. That could also be because of, you know, kind of poor coping skills and all sorts of other reasons. But the message for today is if you have been sexually abused at any point in your life, it's not your fault. It's never your fault. I don't care how skimpy your outfit was, right? You may have wanted sexual attention, but nobody wants to like be raped and sexually assaulted, okay? So the abuse is not your fault. Seek the help of a skilled trauma-informed therapist. And if you live in California, consider us. Transcend Therapy at ca.com is our website, transcendtherapyca.com. And, know that it's not too late. It is not too late to get to a healthier sexual functioning. And these wounds can heal given the right supports, given the right environment. um, if you're male and you've been sexually abused, know that the same help and support is available to you as it is with women. Okay, a lot of times when we think of sexual abuse and sexual assault, we think women automatically because statistically, you know, we're more victimized than men. But that's not to negate the fact that there are men who have been sexually abused that maybe are afraid to speak out. There's more stigma around that for them, or just don't get the same kind of love, you know. So I'm here to let you know that if you have been sexually abused, whatever your gender or sexual orientation is, you deserve healing, okay? And there's a whole community of people really wanting to support you and take you to the next level. All right? So, the last thing I want to say is You also think about, for those with a healthy or safe enough sexual partner, sex can be triggering and language can be triggering, right? So you can negotiate this with your partner and say to your partner that, can we please not use certain words that are triggering for me? For example, if somebody's saying banging, or what other trigger words? The F word, right? Let's F. Well, a, some person may really find that triggering, that it can create them to kind of be in the past again, because maybe that's how their previous perpetrator used to talk to them. So you have to give yourself permission to negotiate these boundaries. And as a sexual abuse survivor, if you are saying that and your partner is not respecting it, that's not your person. That is not safe for you. You're just going to kind of continue the traumatization and perpetuate the abuse. So I highly recommend that you do not move forward with that person if they can't respect that. Now, if you're on the receiving end of that, if your partner is saying, please don't use that language, trust me, you are going to have the best sex of your life if your partner is actually feeling respected and feeling supported. Okay? A lot of times, traumatized folks that are having sex are dissociating. They're not in the room, they're somewhere else. Is that what you want? If you just want sex, then maybe. But if you want connection, intimacy, fun, satisfying sex, sex that feels like love, you want your partner in the room, right? So, again, what happens in the bedroom is largely determined by what's happening outside. Okay? So, to all my survivors out there, my sexual abuse fellow survivors out there, please give yourself the gift of therapy and healing, and choose a healthy, safe partner so that you can experience and rediscover your sensuality, get back to a healthy sexuality, give yourself permission to experience pleasure again, and just feel good again about kind of who you are as a woman or as a man, right? And not have this kind of weighing you down and following you around forever. Okay? So hopefully this was helpful. Um, I wanted to talk about this because it was actually a request from one of our members, and I do know that this is usually something you don't hear a lot about, and so I wanted to um, do my best to give you guys my take on it, and I hope that it's encouraging. So, like I always say, be well, be gentle, get mental, because we all have issues. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.